I'm going to actually get things kicked off, and I'm thrilled to introduce the host and creator of Here For Me, Ms. Nicole Christie.
Thank you, Stacy. And thank you to everyone for joining us. And before I get started, she mentioned the sponsors, all of the wonderful people that have made this event possible. But I have to thank Stacy and Dave from Lens Group Media. Without them, I'm going to try to not cry. None of this would have happened. They produced a podcast I hosted for Microsoft and told me in November of 2020, you need to have your own show, and we want to do it. And everything we've done, the concept of this show, they've been with me every step of the way, taught me everything I know. So thank you. And thank you to all of you for joining this conversation with the inspiring, brilliant, lovely gem of a human, Renee Erickson. As Stacy mentioned, my name is Nicole Christie, and I am the creator and host of Here For Me, which, if you're new to the show, some people may be, is a podcast about the power of choosing yourself, of being here for you just as you are there for others. And it's about how the best self-care comes from the inside. So it's self-awareness, self-compassion, self-respect, self-integrity. We dive into all of that through life-altering stories, lessons learned, and advice from leading experts that help you show up for yourself with the love, honor, compassion, and encouragement I know everyone readily gives to others. So why did I create this podcast? Here For Me was born out of my own story of healing and discovery. Between 2019 and 2022, I weathered 2 health crises in rapid succession, including a year-long battle with ocular cancer. I moved from Seattle to San Diego. I stepped away from a hard-charging career in corporate communications at Microsoft, and I felt my way to the other side of divorce, all during a global pandemic. All of this left me craving open, honest, vulnerable conversations about what it means to be a human in this world, the kind that I think we need a lot more of. I wanted to talk with people about their life disruptions and transitions and how they learned to care for themselves through them. What I'm learning through all of this is that doing the hard work on ourselves is messy and murky, and it takes the right blend of humor, serious insight, and content warning, salty language. We'll try to keep it a little clean tonight, but who knows, who cares, to have these conversations with others. Ooh. And with that, we will get into tonight's conversation with Renee. Most of you know her. She is a James Beard Award-winning chef, author, artist, and the co-owner of Sea Creatures restaurants right here in Seattle, which includes the incredible Walrus and the Carpenter, The Whale Wins, Wilmot's Ghost, General Porpoise, and oh so many more, favorites of all of ours. This season of Here For Me is all about detours, and we're going to hear about the detours that Renee has taken along the path of her inspiring career and life. So without further delay and rambling from yours truly, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome Renee Erickson. Hello.
Hi.
And welcome.
Yep.
Oh yeah, sorry, we're
that.
mic'd up. Sorry, we won't do that. We're trying to be.
These terrify me. So here we go. Hello.
Hello, welcome.
This is pink.
This is pink. This is sort of like we're just like it's sunset, and so we're just going with it. Yeah. Hello, everyone. We're like filtered and lit up and all these things.
It's nuts. I've never done this kind of thing before.
This is actually pretty cool. So Cadence 3 and Sasha, thank you for that. I wanted to start out talking about how you and I met. So Renee and I met in 2009 through a mutual friend who's also named Renee. And at the time, the three of us were going through some pretty traumatic breakups, like no one has ever been through. And other Renee and I, as we'll call her, would come to Boat Street and hang out with you and your team, and you'd bring rosé and oysters and your amazing bread with sea salt. Renee got me into the bread with sea salt, very important. And we would just bitch about boys. So I always joke that if I had a memoir about that time, it would be bitching about boys at Boat Street.
Never happened.
Never happened at all. It's never happened. But here we are. I think it's kind of interesting that we started out having vulnerable conversations about life and relationships, and then now here we are like 13 years later doing it in this forum.
Yeah. Yep, it's true.
Yes. So we will kick off. As I said, this season of Here For Me is about detours. And we are going to talk about those times when we've been talking about when we either intentionally or unintentionally veer off our course of life. I know you have many stories. There are a few detours in your life that I want to talk about tonight, and specifically what each one taught you about showing up for yourself. So let's start with Boat Street, because that was the big one. It was kind of, your foray into this industry, and it really was maybe a surprising detour, but one that you took intentionally. You were a recent UW grad. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Renee has a BFA in art. I think you sit on the board for the art school, are you?
I do.
Yeah, so this is like, yes, I know. Like, this is so incredible. Such an amazing part of your world. But you bought Boat Street Cafe from its original proprietor, Susan Kaplan, in '98. Is that right?
Yes.
So about 4 years after you finished school. And I'm curious, what pulled you toward this path? And what were you feeling when you took it?
Foolishness, I think. I graduated from University of Washington in 1995 and spent time before and after that traveling. I got to go to Rome. I don't know if anyone's been to Rome in this room, but it's the best place on the planet, in my opinion. And I went to school. The university has a building on the Campo dei Fiori, and I would get to walk from my very nice apartment that I wasn't supposed to get to stay in, that was owned by Cornell University, like really close to Piazza Navona. So it was like a very short, insanely beautiful walk to school every day. And during that time, I would like walk by the lamb shop and the cheese shop and the pasta shop and the whatever. And although I was supposed to be studying art mostly and taking Italian, I was just like, what is this place of food? And came home after 6 months in Rome, and I had been working at Boat Street as a student, and Susan was going through a lot of things in her life and kept bugging me about buying it, and I was just like, I'm not doing that. So I left again, went to Europe for 7 months, traveling like I was very fortunate to get to do, with a backpack and grody clothes that my mom burned when I got home. But just like trying to like figure out what I was going to do with my life, and really thought, because of my passion of art and my history of growing up around artists, I wanted to be an art teacher. And so that's what I was going to do. I was applying to graduate school, and I wanted to, I don't know, I'm sure many people in this room that might know Jeffrey Mitchell, who is one of my heroes in this world. And he was my teacher at University of Washington and went to Temple University in Pennsylvania, or in Philadelphia, who also owns a building in Rome. And I was like, I'm gonna go do that. Like, I'm going back to Rome. And I sadly got waitlisted into the graduate program. And at the same time, Susan was still trying to sell me this restaurant that I had now started just doing more and more as time went on. And again, this was 1997 at that point. So there was no cell phones. There was barely internet. Thank God there was no Yelp. And,
oh my God.
and so like owning a restaurant was like, sure, that sounds interesting. And so she kept bugging me. And at a certain point, I was waitlisted for graduate school and still really loving owning this or working in this restaurant. And so I asked my parents and some close friends, and they were like, should I wait to see if I get into college, or should I buy this restaurant as a 25-year-old? And they were all like, buy the restaurant. And I was like, oh God, I'm a terrible artist. And so I did. My parents loaned me $10,000, and I basically bought a restaurant, and I was 25. So, yeah. And it was, I mean, who had anyone been to the original Boat Street, on Boat Street? I love you.
Yes.
It was, I mean, I talk about it all the time, where I'm like, if I could just have that, I would go back in time. But it was special. It would not pass a health inspection today, but it had, it was terrible. It was so great, but it was terrible. It had like, the roof leaked. We had like tomato cans that we would hang from the ceiling to collect the water. There were literally like rats that are still in the water that would walk up and find their way into the restaurant. And they're like water rats. They are like no other rat you've seen. It was just like the weirdest place on earth. But I would go back in a heartbeat. So so I was, thinking I was going to be becoming a teacher and going to university, and then I started owning a restaurant. So yeah, I remember it was the first night was kind of hysterical. It didn't go well. Jeffrey Mitchell, who I spoke about a minute ago, was working there at the time, and there was all these other employees that were also working there that some I had worked with, some I hadn't, and when they found out that I had bought it, and also like some people's jobs were not going to be maintained for many reasons that we don't want to talk about, but they like literally unplugged everything, threw stuff out into Pacific Avenue. It was like a total mess.
Oh my God.
And so I remember the next day going in and just being like, of course I didn't assume anyone would do anything like that. But my parents and my girlfriend from elementary school and I basically opened the restaurant the next day. And it was I can tell that story, but it was as disastrous as one can imagine. I think kind of comically bad in a way, but yeah.
I mean, you'd worked there, you'd worked at the restaurant, right?
Yeah,
but
I had cooked,
running
I had done
all the things,
but yeah.
But in terms of running it, like challenges that you were into, were you and Susan partners at that point as well? No, okay.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So she sold it to me the next day, like, all this stuff happens. The day after that, I'm like, all right, we have to open the restaurant because there's reservations. And so we do. And my mom, who's now 82, was one of the servers with my friend Chrissy, who neither knew how to open a bottle of wine.
Who I worked with at Muffin Break in Woodinville.
Oh, shit.
Renee and I realized we actually met in high school because I worked with Chrissy at the Muffin Break in Woodinville in the late 80s. So just do the math right now. Holy crap.
So yeah, in the middle of like service and trying to like put food out for these poor customers with my dad in a kitchen, and he was just like every 2 seconds like, what am I doing? And I'm like, do not ask me another question. Like I'm gonna lose my mind. And my mom came back into the kitchen with a bottle of wine and a wine opener, and she was just like, I don't know what to do with this. And I'm just like, so fast forward so then the next 2 days we closed, and we basically like cleaned and got rid of all, just
so much.
Yeah, had to like sage it basically. Yeah. And the following, so we were always closed on Mondays, and the following Tuesday I go in the morning and I like start answering, like voicemails. We had those then, and I was getting to them, and I get this voicemail, and it was from Catherine Robinson, who, if anyone knows anything about food writing in Seattle, she's a food critic forever. And she leaves me this message. Well, not me. She didn't know what the hell was happening. She leaves a message for the restaurant. And she's like, I was in on Friday night or whatever the hell at night it was. And she's just like, something seemed different. Can you give me a call? And
what's different?
Like, you gotta be kidding me. Like literally the first night I took over. There was a critic in the restaurant. And I'm just like, I just wanted to die. And so I call her.
It's good training though.
And I was like, I was just like, I'm just gonna tell you, like, this is what happened. It was garbage, I'm sure, I'm very sorry. And I was like, if you could just give me like 6 months to like figure this out.
Don't come back.
Please don't write a story. And thank God she said yes, she didn't write anything. Oh my God. And then 6 months later, she wrote a very nice review, which was amazing. But I was just like, I'm gonna throw up.
Thank you for that, Catherine Robinson.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself during this time?
I don't think 25-year-olds learn a lot about themselves.
It's true.
Because I think if I as a 50-year-old, 51, why the hell would I give myself another year? 50-year-old, I, look back and just be like, who would have thought that this was a good idea? But I think, thankfully, when you're 25, you have like no care in the world, and you just do things, and you don't think that it's going to be for 25 years, which I never assumed I would keep doing this. I just was like, it was fun. This is fun.
It's a job. It's something to do.
Yeah, and I didn't get into college, so got to do something. I think, it's like a hindsight thing where you look back and you're like, why not? Just do stuff. I was at a talk last night at town hall, and the conversation was kind of like, how do you know when you're gonna need to, or like when you're ready to do something, or how you start doing something? And a woman was just like, no better time than now. So like, just go do it.
Yeah.
So I think, looking back, it was that kind of blissful ignorance of a kid who just liked doing it. Like, and that's the thing, I think more than anything over 25 years is I love being in restaurants. Like, I love going to them. I love mine. I love the experience of them. I love that it's like this place for people that get to come and share in it. And so that was what I fell in love with when I was 25 and not aware really, but.
And I think having passion and purpose like that carries you through that because, you know, if people are doing something, I've talked about this before, like if you think it's going to make you happy or something, I'm going to do this decision to make me happy. It's like there's so few things that actually make you happy, and certainly not on a regular basis. But if you feel aligned to something you're passionate about and you feel purposeful, you can ride all of those waves. You know, you can ride through imposter syndrome and all that because you're like, I just love doing this, you know? Yeah, and I think that that's probably, and also not maybe being ready to not be ready.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I even understood what I was doing for 2 or 3 years. Like, it was just, you just were like, oh, it's 10:30, I'm open. You know, like the hours say I'm supposed to be open, so here we go.
So here we go. I'm ready to not be ready. Open the door and see what happens.
So yeah, it was chaos, but it was also a lot of fun.
Do you think you've carried that through as you've expanded? Like that attitude?
The chaos?
Just embracing it. Just embracing like,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, you can't take it that seriously. I think restaurants, I don't know, like there's a lot of restaurants in the world that obviously do take it that seriously. I am not that person. I think I care more about, I mean, honestly, I care more about the people that I work with than like the people that walk in the door, which, sorry everyone, but that's to me like where it is, that's the best part of it. And then I care for like my farmers and my fishers and my fill in the blanks, because they're the ones that are like not partaking in, you know, they don't even come to restaurants generally because they're just, you know, like slaving away in the, you know, the field. So I mean, it's more complicated now. Obviously, we have way more staff. The world's a very different place than it was 25 years ago as far as how restaurants function, and mine, you know, I've just worked for myself for 25 years, so I think that's like a massive bonus in many ways, and then also kind of strange. But for me, like, I get to learn from all my employees, which is what's so great. Like, there are so many things where I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. Will you please show me? Because there's just, you know, I didn't go to culinary school. I haven't worked for a million chefs to like teach me tricks, and so there's always things where I'm just like, that's cool. Like, what is that? You know? So
I think that I think that you're the people that work with you, for you, and obviously your family actually does work with you, but
not anymore, thank God.
Yeah, okay, but they did for a long time. They did for a long time. But you create.
Shirley's not here, so we can.
You can say that right now. Jim and Shirley not here right now. We can say this. But I think that love that you have for the people that, you know, work with you, and then, you know, like you said, are your fishermen, that carries down to your customers.
Totally. I mean, I think, you know, I say that kind of as a joke. Like, obviously, I really wouldn't, we wouldn't be able to open our doors if people didn't come and support us and, you know, care about what we do. And it's, you know, like from 25 years ago to now, like, it's like unbelievably different in the amount of support the community offers, and just the broad kind of like community of restaurants and farmers markets and all the things that make them, you know, amazing in Seattle or in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, I love it. I mean, I feel it's a funny thing. Like, I've been saying this for a long time, and like, I get asked a lot of questions about, like, you know, the history of, you know, all the Me Too stuff and all the like shitty chefs that treat people like garbage. And, you know, there's like this need to like have a story about it. And like, obviously I'm well aware of what goes on, but I've been so lucky to not have to experience that. And so like to the idea of, I was telling this terrible story the other day about the one time that I actually yelled, like really yelled, and it was at the First Boat Street, and I remember, and it was just like this moment where I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, why would I get so upset over this? And it was because someone basically burned me and also asked me the same question like 15 times in a row, and I was just like, I can't take this. I was just like, get out of here, you know, like, I'm like so upset. But like, I feel really, grateful that I get to spend it with people that like really care about what they do and haven't really had a terrible time in it. I'm one of the few.
I was going to say, you are like the antithesis of that.
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about, of like, it's so beautiful and you feel that in all of
I mean, it's not, I mean, this sounds like we're so amazing, but it's not, it's not that. It's just that I think you go to work every day and you get to like spend time. And we all know that like a lot of the people that work in the restaurant industry come there for some need, whether it's like support and a lot of it's not even like, I don't think they know it, where you're, like life can be shitty. It can be really hard. And a lot of people that get hired in restaurants need, a family or need a place that like can hopefully, like give them some stability and support. And it's, it's complicated, but I think we've somehow managed to, prioritize that in a way. Like, I'm not saying that we're like this, like, utopia of restaurant group, but like, I think it's something that's really like, we talk about it all the time as a group. And so, and I think what's best about where we're at now and like the kind of shift from like me by myself in the kitchen all the time with my dad is, a group of, like there's people back there that I love that, hold us all up and make sure that we're all, accountable and doing what is best. And that takes a lot of people versus just one. So
it's culture. I mean, we hear about that, a lot of people in this room work in the corporate space and you hear about culture and how it's so important from the top down, if you will. That's exactly what you're doing.
Absolutely.
You talk about a bump in the road. You talked about the first boat street. You're like, which one?
I know.
Yeah. So I'm curious. That was 2005?
No, it was 2003, I believe. Okay. I think we reopened Boat Street in 2005.
There was a couple of years
there
where
was 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So I was standing in the first Boat Street kitchen on a Friday, I believe, at like 2:30. So we were open Tuesday for lunch, Wednesday through Saturday, lunch and dinner, and then Sunday brunch. So I was basically like there all day from like 9 to midnight. And in the middle, you would basically like, they call it flipping the kitchen. So you like flip your station so you can cook dinner. And so I was doing that, and in walks this lady in a very nice suit, and she starts to tell me about, and I knew that the building was for sale, and I really wish I had a bunch of money back then because it sold for like nothing on the water. And so they came in, the building was sold, and she's just like, oh, we want to have a meeting with you and talk to you about the new Boat Street project. And I was just like, And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I have a lease and I have an addendum or an option to my lease that I didn't need to, what do you call it? I should know this by now, where you implement it. Essentially renew it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I can't talk right now. It's Friday afternoon, but let's set up an appointment. So foolishly, like, because I didn't know any better, the following, I think, Monday, I went to the Dexter Horton building downtown by myself. I'm like, boop, boop, driving down there, park, go up, and I walk into this giant, like room like twice the size of this, giant board table, probably 14 men in suits, and a wall of like these development drawings. And I'm just like, just like no idea what I'm like walking into. And I just remember like getting there, and it was like I was being interviewed or something. So I sit down and they're like telling me all this stuff, and I'm like, and I listened, and then I got to a point and I was like, well, what are you gonna do about my lease? And they all just kind of looked at me like I was nuts, and I'm like, And so, they just, there was some shuffling of papers and some stuff that happened, and that, like, I don't even, at that point I had kind of lost like any sort of awareness of what was going on. And I remember driving home. At this point I bought a phone at this point, so I had my first cell phone, and I was driving and talking on the phone, and I called my mom, and I was like, I really think something bad just happened, but I don't really know what's going on. And so I got home and just like kind of like, I remember like standing in my bedroom, and I called the attorney for my landlord. My landlord was a little interesting. And so she was not available to talk. But I called the attorney and he's like, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You have your lease, you have your option, you're good. I'm like, okay. And so I hung up the phone, not knowing that said attorney like hightailed it to Canada. They had sold the property without my option on my lease. And so, which I, of course, didn't know that like when you have a lease, you get it registered, because I was 25 and didn't have a clue. So I called a friend who worked for Tom Douglas at the time, and I was just like, do you have an attorney that I can talk to? And so I hired an attorney, and so this was in, what month was this? This was probably in February maybe. And so we basically, attorneys do a lot of things and collect a lot of documents and whatever. And we get to a place and he's just like, we need to sue them. And I'm just like, what? Because they weren't responding to us. And I was like, okay, and because we tried to we wanted to get them to pay attention to us, me and the lease, and they were planning on breaking ground on April 1st.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we sued them, and in the city of Seattle at that point, the length of time before you would get a court hearing was like 2 years or something like that, which my attorney at the time knew, which I had no idea. He's like, this is the only way that they're going to pay attention to you. So that happened. And of course we then ended up in a mediation downtown Seattle, and don't ever do this. It's the worst, 17 hours of your life where you sit in a room with your attorney, and there's a retired judge that goes back and forth and just hammers you to break, essentially.
Interrogation.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
I was just like, I just want to make food. I don't understand.
Why are we doing this?
Why is this so hard? But yeah, it didn't, I ended up getting enough money to put some stuff in storage. Mm-hmm. And they also then bullied the hell out of me for the rest of the 3 months. And they parked I have these photos. I need to frame them or something. Just when I'm really angry, I can look at them. They parked an excavator at the front door of Boat Street, with this giant claw thing, literally 2 feet away from the front door for the last 2 months of service or 2 weeks of service. But yeah, so I don't know where I'm going with that. So I lost the restaurant and put my mom, it was, it happened. A long time ago, but it was traumatic. I loved this restaurant. My dad and I laid the patio, we built the picnic tables. My dad and brother built the bar, poured the steps that the excavator was parked on top of. Right. Met some of my best friends that, I've ever met in the industry. It was traumatic. Yeah. And now it's the ugliest building ever. And the irony of it, I won't say any names, but I went to the bathroom during the mediation, and the person that was not happy that we sued them, it's just hysterical, told me that his money was going to be going to better use because he gives small loans to women in South America. And I was just okay, I'm going to go back. Yeah, and, I hate you already. So, so it was not a great experience. But
you reopened, so it was 2 years between?
2.5 years. So so we started.
What was that time like?
Awful. So I had bought a condo. So when you open a business, especially a restaurant, you don't pay yourself because you assume you're never going to make any money. And then eventually, because I was working 70 hours a week or more and doing all the things, and I made money, and I was and I think I made $30,000, which to me at the time was just a mountain of money, still is. And I was didn't know what to do with it. And I was just like, I was living with my parents. I had a truck that my godfather sold me for $1. That was what I was driving around. It was like a 1967 pea green Toyota pickup truck that had a hole in the bottom. So when I drove from Boat Street to my parents' house in Woodinville at like midnight in the rain, like water would splash up underneath it.
Fun. That's what you need in Seattle.
Yeah. I remember getting like a new CD player for it, and it would I bought 3 of them thinking that somehow the next one wouldn't get stolen. They just kept getting stolen. It was the only good part of the truck, and I could pick up stuff. But where am I going with this?
The 2 years. It was like 2 years of like
so
awfulness.
I was able to buy a condo, and this all happened like a year and a half before the loss of the restaurant. And then I love dogs, and so I ended up getting a puppy that I wasn't supposed to have in my condo because it was a co-op. And I lied to them and said that I was dog sitting, and then I was just like, I can't live here anymore.
Dog
and so
stayed.
I joked that the only reason why I have a house in Seattle is because I bought this puppy, Jeffrey, who I couldn't live in this condo anymore. So I sold the condo and made $40,000 in like a year and a half, which was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And so I bought my house, and the month after I closed on the house was when the restaurant was like destroyed.
Oh my God.
So I went
like,
from
oh, I have all this.
Holy shit, I'm like gonna, have a house and,
Life is coming together.
Pay myself and, and then to like, oh God, what am I gonna do? So I still have the house, don't worry.
You still have the house.
I had lots of roommates for a while to help pay because it's, it's what you do. A lot of employees moved in too. That's, part of it,
like having people that work for you and going through that.
I had a lot of employees that had one girlfriend lived in Vancouver, Washington, but was going to school at UW, and so she would spend half the week at my house. And anyways, it was very helpful to have people help pay the mortgage, which was terrifying. So 2.5 years went by. So Susan Kaplan, who started Boat Street, she had opened a donut shop. So the guy, someone I told earlier, this is total sidebar, but I was walking this morning just to rant, and this guy, it was 7:15 in the morning. I'm with my husband and my dog, and he just this total random dude in Finney looks at me. He's like, "Why don't you make more donuts?" And I'm just like,
really?
Good morning, and I was just like, what? And I was just so taken aback. But anyway, Susan had a donut shop at Eastlake, and he was like, the donuts on Eastlake were better. And I'm just like,
oh, okay, thanks. Yeah,
right,
that's literally this morning that this happened.
So I can be like, yeah, asshole, just take your kid to school and shut up.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. She had her donut shop.
She had her donut shop, and Susan and I decided that we would do catering, which is how Boat Street Kitchen came about. And so we did catering together for 2.5 years in the back of a donut shop. So it was very glamorous and greasy, but so we did that and just kept looking for space. And it was the time of Seattle when it was before Amazon and all the everything that's happened in South Lake Union. And so Paul Allen's company, what's it called? Vulcan, thank you. I remember spending days with Ada Healy. I used to work with Ada. Walking around, looking at buildings that were going to give me a 2-year lease. And I'm just like, I can't do this. And they were all the cool buildings, but they're all now gone. And I remember just being I just want another space. But I couldn't find, it took forever. We ended up, if you'd been to the second Boat Street, in a very weird location, but kind of magical.
It's really cool. On Elliott.
And, but yeah, it was just this, such a weird...
It's a weird time.
Donut shop
But you opened on Elliott. Susan was running Boat
Street Kitchen,
back in Boat Street Cafe. And I feel like a lot of people came back and worked for you, and you sort of recreated, it felt like, this family, this new...
Who was left over from the first one? Shannon, yeah. Lots of front of the house people. Back of the house, was there any?
yeah.
But yeah, I think the front of the house people for sure, Britta, who was the person that worked with me at the original Boat Street, was how I ended up with my attorney. Yeah. So we ended up there was quite a few people that came back. So
you came back, you had the new restaurant. How are you feeling at that time of coming through that period of like, it's just such resilience of like, you've got people living in your house, you're running a catering business out of Susan's donut shop. Like what
I mean, it was exciting. It's, you know, it's always exciting. I mean, that's, you know, like I have 9 restaurants. It's always exciting opening a restaurant. You're like, what is wrong with you? But you know, the creativity part of opening a restaurant and building it and collectively like working with a team is exhilarating and super exciting and satisfying. It was challenging because I had, when I bought the restaurant from Susan, I ran it by myself for 5 years. And so then we started working together again, which was complicated. It was complicated because like, I think I had become a different person than her previous employee and had a lot of my own ideas. And I think it was, I was, you know, still young and not really great at communicating how I felt about things. And so there were times where I think I mean, even to the point where, you know, I would do things because I didn't want to like really tell her how I felt, you know, which of course is not the right thing to do. So it became clear, like, I think kind of early on for us that like she was going to run Boat Street Kitchen and I was going to run Boat Street Cafe. And that was very clear to me going into it that that's how it should be. Yeah. But it was really hard. It was like, turns out it didn't make a whole lot of sense. The world had no idea and it was very complicated and weird to try to tell people. Yeah. But yeah, so that went on for almost 9 years together-ish. Yep. Yeah, and I'm not like super proud of like a lot of how I handled it. I think I could have, I know I could have been more honest and kind of maybe dealt with things in a more mature way, but
what do you do differently now based on that experience?
I wouldn't have joined together again. Like, you know, I think the challenge is like, I think Susan wanted to be collaborative and I didn't, you know, and that I think in hindsight was foolish on my part, but at the time I was like working so much and doing so much on my own that it felt really weird to then like have the luxury of like to chat about what we wanted to cook.
Right.
You know, like I just didn't want to like I didn't think I could have that conversation and I wasn't sure that I wanted to either.
Yeah. Do you think you also had a vision though of like what you wanted to build?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had different like importance. We prioritized different important things. Like I really wanted to like go to the farmer's market and meet farmers and look at the produce and talk to them about it and have them show up and bring stuff to me. And that wasn't what inspired her. And so it was just, you know, we were just different people in different times of life and it was just complicated. And I think I was foolish and probably, you know, maybe not as polite about it. And, you know, like it wasn't ever bad. It just wasn't ever great, you know, and that was the kind of shitty part in hindsight where I'm just like, well, that was dumb, Renee. Like, you know, we could have maybe done this a little better, but
it did not make you shy away from, well, you did shy away from partnership a little bit.
Oh yeah.
When Chad Dale, who is now one of your co-owners of Sea Creatures, came and was like, hey, Colstrand Building, Ballard, don't you want to open another restaurant? Talk about what you went through.
So that was year 7 of the second rest. Is that even possible?
Was that like 2010? We
opened in 2010.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been.
Yeah.
Is that right? 5 years in.
And you were like,
No, so Chad Dale is one of our partners and he had returned from living in China and he was he's a developer and well, at the time he was not a developer, but he is now. And he some friends of his bought the Colstrand building on Ballard Avenue and we're trying to put it together and make it cool. And he was coming in like weekly to Boat Street and he went, now in hindsight I crack up because this is what he does in all our restaurants now. He comes in and like works on his computer and eats food all day long. You're just like, such a nice life for you, Chad. Like it's hysterical. But he would do that at Boat Street and he would always be like, you know, I want to do this. You should come do this with me. Will you do this? And I'm like, no. Like I was like really afraid I couldn't wrap my head around a second restaurant. I was just like, and for a long time, I was just like, I don't want to not cook. So if I open another restaurant, like how do you figure that out? Right. And so Chad is very persistent, and which is why we have 9 restaurants.
Yeah.
And not the only reason, but love you, Chad. But he kept coming, and finally I was just like, all right, let's go look at it. So we went to Ballard and looked at it, and at the time, like the front of the building hadn't been re-bricked or anything, and so it was just like plywood. Kind of like Ballard now, just plywood everywhere, which is just so awful. But we went in and we looked around, and the front part where Staple and Fancy is like was intended to be the restaurant, and then where Walrus was supposed to be the kitchen. And I was just like, this place is enormous. There's no way in hell I want this restaurant. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm not, no. And so like we kind of kept looking around and went in the back, and part of like, I think a combination of like where Boat Street was at the time and what it was before made me really want a restaurant that had like lots of light. And so I was just like jokingly, I was like, Chad, if you can give me the back space, let me put a patio out back and find me the money, I'll do it. And I was just like thinking I'm like just so wise and, able to just
calling
be like,
his bluff.
Finally leave me alone, right? And yeah, so next day he's like, great, let's do it. And I was just like, fuck. And so I, at that point, was just like, well, I can't open a restaurant with a guy who knows nothing about anything at all. So I need someone who's gonna be a partner who could be at Walrus, so if I'm at Walrus or if I'm at Boat Street, there's someone at both locations that like is going to be the person that like will do the dishes if you have to. Pick up, throw up, clean the vomit, or all the stuff that you don't want anyone else to have to do. But and so Jeremy Price, who's our other partner, was an employee of mine at Boat Street, and him and his father built like our banquettes and the bar. And anyways, at some point over the many years that we worked together, he said to me at some point, he's just like, if you ever do anything, I would love to talk to you about it. I'd love to like work with you. And I don't remember when it was or anything, but I just remember being like, I wonder if he would be interested. And so I talked to Chad about it, and we talked to Jeremy and basically asked if he would want to be, the third arm to this ridiculousness of us. And so he was actually applying to architecture schools. And I think if he were here, he would tell you that he was like, oh, this could be interesting. I could like design my own restaurant and not have to go to architecture school. So,
which he kind of does now. I mean, that's his, he's responsible for your,
And so the three of us started Walrus in 2010. So.
How was this partnership different from when you were with Susan? What did you learn that you
we all have our, I hate saying this, it sounds so like not me, but like we all have our lanes, which is, I think that like difficulty I had with Susan around like feeling, it sounds like I'm like, just like my way or the highway, which poor Colin is probably like, yeah, Renee. He's in the back being like, earlier today you were really irritating.
Hiding away.
But it's, it's nice to like collaborate with people, but like not have them like question every move you make or like want to like discuss whether it's the right idea or not in a like global sense. Like I don't mind it like around a dish or something like that, but like, in the middle of like all the stuff, like it felt luxurious and like not important to stop and like have these like great conversations, which now I'm thinking like, that sounds awesome. But at the time I was just like, I have to like do go shopping and do all the stuff and write the payroll and do the, like all that, junk that, comes with a restaurant.
Oh yeah.
So it's very different. I think we've, we all love each other, like, which is weird a little bit because it's.
You guys just went on vacation together. I was like,
we did.
You and Jeremy and Dan, your husband, and his wife.
No,
which is awesome.
I think we kind of joke every once in a while. We're like, we haven't really had like a hard conversation in a while. And like, there was one time I remember we had this like, we were actually I think we were like signing a loan or something, and there was some like thing that we had to talk about, and we all ended up just like sobbing like together, and I'm just like, what is wrong with us? Like we are complete dorks, but it's very sweet. Like we do get along really well and trust each other
and that's
a lot.
I've heard what you're talking about having swim lanes. I've heard that referred to as like the Hollywood model of collaboration, where it's like you've got lighting, you have your director, you have actors. Everyone has a very unique skill set. And I think that sometimes people don't understand that that is still collaboration, because it's not like you're swimming next to each other, but you have your hands on each other's shoulders. Like, I've got you, but I trust that you know how to do what you need to do. And most of my career has been as a writer. I can relate to that of like, please don't write the thing. Like, I'm happy to take feedback, right? But like, it is like, you actually do something else. So I think like you guys mastering that is still a really beautiful collaborative thing that involves a lot of trust.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I think, I think it's one of those things where if I, look back, I was like, I was 20, whatever, and just
young,
an idiot. So, I did, I just did. Yeah, it wasn't my best self, but we learn.
But thankfully. You learn, and it's working because you have.
I don't know.
8 restaurants.
We have bars. I don't count the bars as restaurants, so it's sort of
properties.
Like, we got rid of a family. We're making some more. It's a lot of fun. I feel very lucky. Yeah.
So we hear a lot about balancing work and life. It's a very popular conversation in restaurants. I mean, your business feels like it's an extension of yourself that feels like it's more life-giving than life-eroding. And I'm curious if you think that's a fair assessment.
That's a nice way of putting it.
How is that sort of being here for you is my question.
It's a tough one. Yeah, we've had kind of a crappy week, so
it's been hard.
It's funny having this kind of ahead of me in the calendar and thinking about the topic. I was like, I don't know that I'm very good at this, but I have a hard time imagining like my life without restaurants, because they feel like, I think like you're saying, they feel like they're me, they're
it's
like
authentic. It's an extension of you.
Totally. So I don't know. I mean, this morning I've been having some calendar issues with my calendar that I've been causing. So I ended up with like a morning free. And so I was just like, I should probably, I texted Bobby and I'm just like, we should talk about today. And then he's just like, just stay home. You're good. Come in later. And I'm like, can I do, like, it's weird.
You need that.
Yeah. And I know that it's like important, and I actually really enjoy it, like, all of those things, but it's hard. It's still hard, after 25 years, you're still like, you feel like you have to be there. And, I think for a long time I would get, I remember some moments with customers that were, I think, trying to be nice, but like, I was probably like a little, like unsure of myself, or, kind of, well, frankly, just kind of really defensive, where, I remember one person telling me like, oh, it must be so nice to not have to work. And I was just like,
what?
My head was going to like explode.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, I swear to God, I don't know if it was Bobby or somebody, but I think they were like grabbing me to just like not like sweep, kick her feet out from underneath her and just be like, punch this person to death. But I think, there's an idea, our restaurants are fabulous. I love them so much, and I love that people love them, and I try to be in them as much as possible, but I'm also aware that I need to not be them all the time. So, I try, I think for me, like what I do if I'm gonna do something for myself is I get on a plane and go somewhere. So, yeah. And although I'll be home for 3 months this stretch, and I swear to God, I'm busier, which is like probably why I get on a plane to leave. But it's fun though. Like I love being home and I love getting to travel. So I would say it's a combination of like my dog, my garden, and then being in my restaurants. I really do love it.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think if you can find something that is your job.
Yeah, well, when it's not fun anymore, I would be like, I'm out, but...
And you're like, I'm done. It's like, 25 years of finding something that feels...
I mean, 2.5 years of, hell, pandemic hell, it was like hell. To still love it is, I feel, we were kind of joking about dumb stuff we were doing during the pandemic and earlier, and like the fact that we still had fun was kind of pretty amazing.
And that was another time of like resilience.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
No one could really have predicted.
Yeah. Yeah. No, bizarre. I mean, I still like think about it. I'm like, did that really happen? Like, did the whole world shut down? Like, we stopped like doing all the things that everyone did, like without thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did it.
Nuts. Wild world.
But yeah, I think you are actually a pillar of being here for you, even though you're like, oh, I don't like walk away from work. I think the integration of work and life, what you do, you have your Sunday dinners, or is it Monday, your Sunday that you do?
Sundays usually, yeah. Sundays, but Sunday, we just call them Sundays if they're a different day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Sundays are the best. Like anyone
she's
that
got
like
a whole Sunday ritual that is really beautiful.
That was like actually the magic of days off in restaurants is like you got Sunday to like do the like normal human things, like hang out with people and go to restaurants or whatever. And then Monday you could do like your grocery shopping and no one was at the grocery store. Or, you know, it was just like, this is great. It's like they made it just for restaurant people to shop.
Yes.
So it's like no one's in the restaurant or in the grocery stores. It's perfect.
You're like, oh, and now everybody works from home.
I
And
know,
I find
now
that they're
it's
all at the grocery store on
matter.
Monday. What
Nothing-
is going on? Like, I'm always like driving around, doesn't anybody work? I'm like, wait, I'm out.
Yeah.
All the self-employed people
Right,
are out there
totally.
doing it. So, well, I want to thank you because your candor and self-awareness are two of your many amazing qualities that I love, and you just brought it and shared so many candid stories. So we will open it up to Q&A. If anyone has questions, Sasha is going to run around. Yeah, woo! They're going to ask questions. She's running around with mics, but anyone have questions? There's one right over here. Joe?
Thanks for the conversation. How long did it take you talked about COVID, to like find your feet? Because obviously lots of restaurants, like there were unfortunately some closings, you know, but the ones who found their feet and stuck to like a cadence throughout the whole pandemic and were adamant about not opening until there was a vaccine, it seemed like they did.
Yeah.
Because they're starting to stop.
I mean, so we had, I think at that point, 11 locations, and within 2 days we closed them all, basically. Yeah, that was like, I'll cry thinking about it. But we went from, and it was like weird too, because like when I think back, like I think we were kind of at this like place where we kind of felt like we were getting it, you know, a little bit, where we had like enough support, and we weren't like, Jeremy always talks about how we're like the restaurants, like the inshoremen, we like forever were like stretched out, like we had never like got our body back caught up with the rest of us. So we were like kind of like feeling like we were like always just kind of chasing it, trying to get it to feel right. And a lot of that we did ourselves, like we were opening and, you know, expanding and doing all that. But so with the pandemic, like all of that just disappeared overnight. So what we did was we kept all of our chefs and all of our managers on the payroll and kind of consolidated them into 3 locations. We kept some like upper management kind of people, and then like Carrie Umania, who was our wine director, who became our president, who's one of my best friends. Like I remember like calling me and she's just like, I'm quitting, like you don't need a wine director, you know. So there was just a lot of people that kind of self-selected out because they're just like, this is ridiculous, like you're a restaurant, no one cares right now. So so we all ended up, a group of us, we kind of like teamed up. I don't know if it was like intentional, but there was like, you know, we kept the chefs that like were at like, well, Colin was at Wilmot, so like he stayed there because we weren't gonna like put anyone else there. And then like myself, Bobby, Alexa, Jeremy, my business partner, and like one other person I think at the time, Marley, thank you. We're at Whale Winds. We closed Walrus. Bateau kind of collected around Jamie and Taylor and Carrie and a few other people. And so it was just, and Justin, and it was, you know, we just kind of like, we're like, okay, like, here we go. And like, it was so weird because, you know, like you work together so much, and then all of a sudden, like, you can't talk to them, you can't be near them, you can't like, you know, there's just like no time for anything. And so it was just like, it's like bizarre. Yeah. So how long did that go on for? Like 3 months before, 4 months before? Oh, and prior to this, we had acquired Westward and decided to gut it January 1st, 2020. So that was great, and spend a lot of money to rehab an entire restaurant to open in March 2020. That didn't happen. So we had this massive debt, obviously, like we had a massive debt, and then this like piling on for that. So let's see, I'm not really answering your question, but I would say that like getting our footing might be just now, honestly. Staffing, I mean, we've all heard it. It's, you know, not specific to restaurants, but I think for a business that has hours where humans show up and expect things from you, it's really challenging. You can't like not answer the phone and, you know, do it at midnight. So that's been really hard. And they're just, you know, Seattle was a really hard place to be in the pandemic, you know, especially on Capitol Hill. Like, I mean, we get broken into 2 or 3 times a week at the restaurants currently. Like Walrus got broken into on Monday, I think. Like, yeah,
So this
yesterday.
is like a constant.
It's just, it's nonstop. So, yeah.
Wow.
But I have to say, like, back to the partnership, like, Chad, who's the financial person, spent, you know, every minute of every day filling out every form on the planet for all the things that the government eventually tried to do to help businesses survive. So I'm, you know, incredibly grateful for that because I would have just been like, is this too much? I can't do this.
I'm closing all the restaurants.
No, I wouldn't have done it. I would have just been like, I can't.
No.
So I think, yeah, I mean, we can't, like, Bateau still isn't open all of the days it's normally open because we just can't. Like, we have people that are interviewed. Well, we call a bunch of people, we set up interviews. I would say like 80% don't show up. If they do show up, then we interview them, and then we have a stage. And of that group, maybe like 25% might show up to the stage. Stage is when you come and like you pay them to like work with you to see if it works out. And then sometimes you hire them and then they don't show up. So it's just like, it's like unbelievably like hysterically bad. I mean, and like at this point we're just like, all right, you know, you can't, like, it's comical at this point because you're just like, what else are we gonna do? So, but yeah, I would say now, and you know, thankfully, like, hopefully the sun stays, that's gonna help a lot. Like having the warmth and having people kind of crawl out of their cave of Seattle will help restaurants too. Because it's, you know, the restaurants, like, all restaurants, even, well, maybe not all, but like almost all the restaurants spend, you know, 7 months a year losing money to make money through the summer in Seattle. So it's just like, you really, like, an early spring is just like, hell yeah, like we are gonna make, you know, right? So, but yeah, I mean, we thankfully, you know, we were able to get a bunch of money from the government to pay, you know, staff. You know, there's just so much that, like, I think in the moment, I don't know that I was even aware of how terrible it was because we were just like running to try to.
One foot in front of the other every day.
Drinking all the wine in the restaurant
Nobody else is. That's what it's there for.
That was like actually part of my job was like, I was like, wait, nobody's gonna buy rosé at Bateau, so I'm gonna go steal all of the rosé at Bateau, and I'm gonna take it to the Whalewinds, and then we're gonna sell it at the Whalewinds, and then nobody's gonna buy, you know, French wine, you know, whatever. Like, we just shuffled shit all over the city to try to sell it. Like, we would have sold anything and everything. Like, it was hysterical. Like, we sold like ceramic things that I made. I'm like, sell it, I don't care. Like, just
doesn't matter.
Take their money. I don't give a shit how we get it.
Whatever it is that they want stools, fine. Bar stools, take
God.
it. Anything.
Hysterical.
Anything you want.
So bad.
Questions? Yes.
Okay, so I have a short answer question, a long answer question, and a comment. So
I'm ready.
All of it.
It's good for you for putting the people that you work with and the proprietors that you work with first, because I think that when you do that, you can feel that energy and you can taste the love that you have for the food and the purveyors and people that you work with. So kudos to you because you can taste that love. The short answer question is your dog Jeffrey, named after Jeffrey Mitchell.
Jeffry.
R-Y.
Very important. Also, the name of the color that all of our restaurants are painted, which is Jeffrey White, which was the name of the little patch on his back that was this little like white patch. We spent, like, this is dumb, but we spent a lot of time painting white splotches all over the second Boat Street. Excuse me. And I don't know if you know about white paint, but most of it has black in it, which is why it's like cold and kind of grim at times. And I was just like, I didn't understand this at the time. So I was just like, what is wrong with all, you'd put it up and it was just like, it's gray. And so I took Jeffrey, the dog, to the paint store, and I was like,
awesome.
"Ah."
This color, the dog's fur. This is what I want.
Yeah. But yeah, he was named. He's no longer with us, but he is on the wall at Bateau now. He was on the wall at Boat Street, and we moved his chalk drawing that Curtis did there.
Curtis Steiner.
But yeah, Curtis Steiner. Yeah.
I love it.
Best dog. Sorry, Arlo, but
Yeah,
So
sorry.
then my long answer question for you is there's a couple 20-somethings that are here tonight, one of them being my daughter. And so
great pants.
Uh-huh.
My favorite pants.
Can we
in the
talk
room.
about that?
Sorry, everyone else, but
Yep.
so as she's about to launch on her own career and life, the risks that you took that got you where you are today, what advice would you give to yourself and to her?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know you, so I don't know what you're like in the world, but I would say just if there's any weird thing that you want to do it. Like I say, I mean, this is probably not what parents want you to hear, but like, it's like, I remember like traveling and I think I had like a Citibank credit card or something like that. And I remember it would get to like my $5,000 limit all the time. And because I would go on trips and I would just be like, I'm gonna make more money. I'm gonna do this because otherwise I might not ever do this. So like, get a credit card. I'm sure you already have one. And do shit. Like do whatever it is you want to do. Because like you're gonna be 50 and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's like harder. You have more obligations. So just like whatever you want to do it. Don't like listen to your inner like worry. I mean, you're gonna be, I remember before I bought Boat Street, I was in Europe and I was traveling and I had traveled with a girlfriend. We started in Ireland and we went to Wales and did all the things. And we eventually ended up in Rome. And I was I had gotten a English as a second language degree because I was like, I'm gonna go to Europe, I'm gonna get a job. And I made it to Rome, still had no job. And my friend Valerie, who I was traveling with, I remember taking her to the airport and then taking the train back to the city. And I was in this like terrible hotel room up by the Termini train station. And I remember walking early in the morning to Piazza Navona to get on that orange phone that sadly is no longer there and call my mom. And this like if you know Shirley, this would be a shocking thing for her to say. She's just like, I was like really sad and lonely and didn't know what I was doing, didn't have a plan. She's like, you're in Rome for God's sakes. And I was just like, like you're not gonna like give me love and tell me like it's fine. Mom, she's just like, what is wrong with you? Like, and I was just like, all right.
Oh, right.
Well, you're right. I'm in Rome. Shut up. So yeah, go see the world. It's real great.
Yes. I would tack on to that. Stacey Harris gave me some great advice. I have 2 bits of advice that I'm tacking on to that. Stacey Harris said you can always make more money, you can't make more time.
Totally.
Yep. So you can figure that out. And someone else said you're always going to be scared about something. Might as well be scared about the thing that you care about.
I love that.
And I was like, oh, that's good advice.
I bet your mom will feed you too if you come back and you have money, so you'll be good.
Or you just go to one of Renee's restaurants. Renee is happy.
We'll get you a job.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good place to work. Yeah. You want to work there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question? I feel like I saw another hand.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Kind of a simpleton question, but I feel like an anomaly because I haven't lived here for a while and I've never been to any of the restaurants. So I'm curious.
I love it.
Which one, in your opinion?
Oh, this is a mean question.
Favorite children. Favorite
Or
children.
give me your top 2. And
All right.
the second question, like, have you ever thought of expanding into like another state or somewhere sunny? Or, San Diego!
San Diego!
Yeah, 2-part question.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard.
I know it's hard.
So I can give you the like PC version, which is like it's seasonal. Like I have my favorite restaurants are based on like the season. But if I had to like, and this is like not the like financially wise Renee, but the one that like just loves stuff. If I like had to pick one, I would keep Walrus of all of them. And mostly I would say it's because it's the one that I think is the most me. But you shouldn't, I mean, come eat all the oysters in summer, but they're garbage compared to the ones in March, February, January, December, November, October.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we sell like 5 times as many oysters in the summer, and thank you for all you want to eat summer oysters.
Summer oysters,
But, oh my God, like some oysters in the winter or spring actually are the best. So feast right
Well, I'll
now
be there to
before
see
it,
you.
before
Yeah.
actually Saturday when the waters start to heat up. But then, yeah, I would say like the other restaurant that I really love is Whale Winds, which is probably, like, it doesn't make any money. I love that. It barely, might break even this year. We'll see. It's like ridiculous, but it's, I think for me, it's like, feels like the most like European of all of our restaurants, in that like it kind of gives you like a time of day to just hang out and have little bits, and you can eat anchovies and sardines and all the things that I love. And we have a wood oven, which makes food like taste a million times better than it should. And the patio. We're putting a glass cover on it right now, which I'm still fighting about. We have this giant tree that I love that we planted there 10 years ago, and we've had covers on it before, and all of our employees, because they want to make money and they want more people, and I love that, but I was just like, we're not cutting the tree down. Like, we cannot cut the tree down. I don't care what happens. The tree can't go anywhere. So we finally found someone to build this like contraption of a cover that's glass. Cool. And now my worry is who are we going to pay to clean it every month, because it's going to be gross. But yeah, so those are the 2 restaurants I would say. And then what was your next question?
I was just saying, you were talking about sun, and I was like,
oh. We had a donut shop in LA.
Okay.
No one eats donuts in LA.
No one eats
Well,
in
we were
LA.
on the west side, which it was our own fault. We didn't do our due diligence, I don't think. But
Porpoise there?
yeah, we had a porpoise there.
I didn't know this.
Yes, in Brentwood. The hell were we thinking? Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know we should have been in like Los Feliz or something, but instead we were in Brentwood. But yeah, that's a whole nother weird story. But like, it's a dreamy idea. It's not practical. Yeah. So, and I want to travel, but not for work. For the most part. Like, there are some trips that I'm happy to do that are work related, but yeah, like that would.
Although even if you follow Renee on Instagram, even when you guys were on vacation just recently in Todos Santos, I think, she's freaking cooking. And the photos of like the food that you guys, I was like,
I love
look
doing
at this.
that.
I know,
That's
I was just
fun.
like, I love that, but that's just how much love you have for it, right? So I was enjoying the photos of like the food that you were making on your vacation. Yeah. That's beautiful.
It's good. Has anyone been to Baja?
Baja's pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty
it's like magic. 4 hours. You're in Mexico. So good. Hi.
What is the most important mistake you've ever made?
Most important. Wow, good question. You should have sent that to me in advance. Most important mistake I've ever made. I mean, I think it's probably like learning to like tell the truth and how I feel. Like I hold a lot of guilt around, Susan and how that was handled.
Yeah. But you were young and you were learning. Like you said, I don't know that's
it's hard. I mean, I think it's something that like I try to like teach people too, where it's just like, if, saying something now is so much easier than saying it like, it's not like you have to saying something in a way that's like not like, how you feel about something or how you want something to be in a like professional kind way versus like bottling it up and then like, in my case, like 2.5 years later being like, blah,
it comes out in another way.
Yeah. Oh no, it was bad.
Yeah. Or it comes out in resentment. Too,
totally.
You're just bottling,
and it just, you don't, it's, So I would say trying to just be really true to your vision and what you want for yourself, and trust that it's not wrong to desire that, and be able to be honest about that. Cause it's still hard. It's not easy. I don't know that I'm like, I've not mastered it, but I know that it's what I need to do. So,
and that's important. I think, is it Brene Brown that says clear is kind?
Yeah.
Which is sort of like, if you're just honest about something, like everybody knows where you stand, right? As opposed to if you're bottling it up, nobody knows, you get resentful, it comes out in those 2 year later ranges or whatever. So just say it now, and then everybody can move forward on the same page. And I think that's a really important lesson that you learned.
Yeah.
Maybe the hard way.
Yeah.
But you learned it, and clearly, your partnerships now are benefiting from that. So that's good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of honesty and truth and love there. I think that's it. Thank you so much.